if I may recommend 10 minutes for your speech, if you can.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Thank you, Christopher, and thank you for the ninth European Union India Smart Grid workshop. I have participated in some of the earlier workshops, and it has always been a pleasure. I have always gone back learning more than sharing the information that we have, and as a practitioner, as a utility, what we have learned over a period of time, especially in terms of how we can bring grid storage into the network and make the infirm power firm. And let me start by saying that a few years back, Government of India came with the policy that we'll have 175 gigawatt of renewables. Out of that, 100 was supposed to be solar. And out of the 100 solar, 40 gigawatt was supposed to be rooftop solar. We are still very far from that. We are just about 4 gigawatt right now. But I think the pace at which the change will happen now will be much faster. There is a much better understanding. The net metering policy is there, and also the ecosystem which is required to ensure that people become prosumers, wherein they produce energy, use partly and give it to the grid, is becoming a reality. And with more and more players coming into it and solutions coming, I think this will gather pace in the coming years. But when you have such large number of solar, what happens to the grid? And that is the question that all the policy makers and the practitioners need to decide on it. So a few years back, when we also in Delhi started looking at rooftop solar, we said we need to understand that is it just a storage system which will store energy and give it to the grid, or is it something more than that? And at that time, we had no clue that what is the way the network will get impacted. A lot of papers were written that you should load the transformer up to 10%. Somewhere it came that you should load the transformer for 15%. And then subsequently some papers came saying that you can even go up to 75%. But it's very important that before you go and do anything like that, you need to start measuring what is the power quality. Where do we stand vis-a-vis the power quality? And at that time, we were fortunate enough to get in touch with the Swedish Metrum. And I remember one of the marketing person and a technical person from there, she came to me and she told me that they make power quality meters. And this is about 5 years back, and I didn't understand. I said, why do you need a power quality? And she said, you definitely need power quality because you are not measuring that the quality of power is deteriorating as more and more electronics is coming into it. And that was the time when India started using LED bulbs. And we said, okay, let's try to measure what these LED bulbs have. And when we started testing these LED bulbs, we found that they had power factors which ranged from 0.3 to 0.95. Typically, a good power factor has to be 0.95. The power factors were so bad in some of the LED bulbs that it was. And then they said that this is just the beginning of the trend that will happen with more and more electronics coming into it, more and more inverters. The quality of power will deteriorate, your ability to transform electricity and distribute electricity will get impacted, your life of the equipments will get impacted, whether it is the transformers or the other electrical equipment. And it's very important to understand this. So we carried out the test with the PQ meters, and we also got in touch with the CRC, and there was a forum of regulators panel which was set up that let's monitor what is this power quality, what is this animal power quality. So it's not only just the reactive power that we were measuring, but also the harmonics that we were measuring. And we found that the harmonics, not only in Delhi, but in many other parts of the country also were in very bad shape. And until and unless we start taking care, and one of the ways of taking care is putting storage batteries. So storage battery was not only just for the purpose of making infirm power firm and storing some energy and providing it during peak period, but also will help in improving the quality of power. We took it up with the regulators at that time, and based on that, the regulators came with the ancillary market. This was the first time the regulators said that there is an ancillary market, though they did not specify the penalties in case the quality of power, especially for harmonics, if it goes down and the consumer will have to pay for it. It was the first step in the direction that there is a need to measure the power quality and ensure that if you go very much down, how it will have an impact on the grid, and there is a penalty or an incentive if you improve the quality of power. So this was the first time that we started looking at it, and I think since then we have come a long way. The CRC guidelines for this has come, and the policy also has come, and the new regulations very clearly lays down that there is a necessity to do this. Now let's come to the other part of it, that why do we need the storage? Now, most of the time, and we are fortunate in India that we have more than 300 days of sunshine, you will have peaking of power which takes place during summer months. And summer months, the solar level is also at its peak. So there is an opportunity to store this energy during that period and also meet the requirement. But what happens after that? What happens after the peak hours? One of the ways is that you can store that energy and use it during the period when you have another peak coming in the evening or in the night time. And I think that is the purpose for which we again collaborated with some of the companies, some US and some European companies, and set up a 10 megawatt storage, battery energy storage system in Delhi to test that how does it react, how does it behave when you have shortage of power. You have all of a sudden the power supply disrupting. Now, one simple way is that when the disruption takes place, you can do load shedding or power cut. But the smarter way is that how do you manage it, that during those periods of shortage, for the interim period or for the short period, you are in a position to supply to the consumers at the load end. And this again, based on the experiments that we have carried out for last 1 year, demonstrates that many a times to avoid the frequency drip, which can go down from 50 hertz, we have been able to save the localized network and have been able to support by providing the additional 10 megawatt of power which is available over there. So I think when we are looking at a grid which is becoming more complex, especially with solar coming in and other distributed energies, storages, other distributed energy resources coming in, it's very important that storage is there and it takes care of the local requirement of energy. I think with in coming days when we have more of electric vehicles into the grid, we'll have much more complications. How do you charge and discharge vehicles on a very short period of time? We have seen that when you have all of a sudden large number of electric vehicles which are required to be charged, how do you use the storage to meet the requirement on a localized basis? Can you connect some of the feeders, especially in those locations where you will have a sudden spurt of charging of vehicles, and thereby ensure that you are able to meet the local requirement as well as meet the requirement of EV charging. So I think the whole gamut of benefits of storage is phenomenal. When we do the calculation of and the viability of putting storage, we need to consider all these aspects. It's not just the aspect of what is the cost of energy that it will store and supply, but also it is like a shock absorber in the grid that is there, and how it is able to also give you the non-tangible benefits in terms of quality of power. So I think when we are looking at the whole storage ecosystem, we need to look at it in totality, and I'm sure when Prad and others start talking about the market design and how we not only bring the tangible benefits but also the intangible benefits, how the viability of it can be established. This is a great opportunity for Indian utilities to work very closely with the European utilities, and the platform that has been created by European Union in bringing this together, and the workshops that they have been carrying out over here in India as also in Italy and in France. It will help us in taking this initiative forward. There's a lot of learning that we need to do to establish the viability, because these are new technologies. The battery costs have not come down to the extent that we were expecting. But nonetheless, these are good beginnings, and once we learn along the way, we'll be able to scale up the utilization of storage batteries, especially at the load centers. So I am delighted to be here, and once again, thank you, Christopher, and the European Union for giving me the opportunity. Thank you very much.